How you all doing, guys? Brandon here, welcome back to Retro Dodo. We have a new setup. This is the new office, this is the new filming studio, and hopefully this gives it quite a cool, laid-back retro vibe that we're going for. If you have any opinions or think we need to change a few things, drop a comment below. And because I've been moving house over the last few weeks, I'm a little late behind on handhelds, and one that creeped out of nowhere was the GKD Mini that was previously announced about 8 months ago. So this is our review. At the time of its announcement, it looked okay and had the potential to compete with some of the cheaper handhelds on the market, but unfortunately for the GKD Mini, things have moved on quickly in the handheld market. As much as the handheld looks small, it's actually fairly big. It's similar size to that of the RG280V, but has a much different layout. So let's take a look at the specs. The GKD Mini has a 3.5-inch IPS display with a resolution of 320 by 240, and it also has tempered glass on the front, which is slightly curved, so it gives it this iPhone aesthetic. On the internals, it has a 1.5 GHz MIP S32 CPU, which is the first we've seen in little handhelds like this. It also has 128 megabytes of RAM, a 2500 milliamp battery capacity, USB-C, and can use SD cards up to 512 gigabytes. There's no HDMI out, nor is there an analog stick like the Powkiddy RGB20 has, and it feels as if the GKD Mini is designed to be a pocket-friendly handheld with a cute, rounded aesthetic for those that love to play in 4:3 aspect ratio. Let's take a look at the front. On the screen you have a logo in the top left, and on the top right you have a LED light system that shows up to 4 dots to indicate how much battery you have left. The little touch of 4 dots gives it a nice characteristic, which I haven't seen in other handhelds before, not even in the LED-filled Gameforce handheld that we reviewed a few weeks back. Towards the bottom of the face you'll find your buttons, which in our personal opinion are a little plain. A little bit of colour in these buttons wouldn't have gone amiss because they've actually etched the A, B, X, Y buttons in black, which doesn't really make sense. But that aside, the buttons are very bouncy, have nice feedback, and sit high out of the shell, so you'll never find your fingers touching the shell behind it. Around the edges of the GKD Mini you will find other buttons and ports such as USB-C, which can also be used with a Wi-Fi and Bluetooth dongle. It also has a headphone jack, volume buttons, and even more menu and reset buttons on the side. Oh, and 2 SD card slots, one for firmware and one for ROMs. On the back is where things get a little interesting, and it's always interesting to see how other retro handheld manufacturers are attacking the shoulder buttons on vertical handhelds like this. GKD has gone down the same route as the RG351V, but with less finesse. They have rolled their shoulder buttons off the top of the battery container, and this is technically the best place to put them, but due to their minuscule size, the R2 and L2 buttons are incredibly hard to press. It's also worth noting that when I did the shake test, you can hear the buttons shaking considerably through the shell. Overall, I like the way the GKD Mini looks. It has this adorable, rounded, playful look to it that reminds me of a Tamagotchi or a modern day Game Boy Mini. So moving on to performance. This is the first handheld I've reviewed that has a MIP S32 CPU, so I can't really compare it to any others using that chip, but I can take the $80 price tag as a comparison to other handhelds on the market. The 1.5 GHz CPU combined with the 128 megabytes of RAM allows me to play most retro consoles well up to PlayStation 1, but this is where it ends. Some of the best PS1 games struggled on this device, and with the low resolution screen, it didn't look great either. Playing Game Boy games, SNES, NES, Neo Geo, Master System, and so on will work very well without any signs of drop frames or screen tearing. The screen aspect ratio is also perfect for old school games, and it's good to see more and more retro handhelds take on this 4:3 nature with a glass cover, because let's face it, stretching your games is not cool. But that's where it stops with the screen, because the low resolution is just about bearable. The GKD Mini is a step back for sure, but the $80 price tag doesn't match that. The The low screen isn't crispy, the low resolution makes games look scruffy and blurry, even if the colours are nicely saturated. And when you load up the GKD Mini, you are greeted with this ugly OS, one that reminds us of handhelds that we reviewed many years ago. It feels like this should have launched back in 2019. I know this can be changed if you put your mind to it and do some research, but I like to review these handhelds straight out of the box, because that's how a lot of you guys actually experience these types of handhelds, so the OS just wasn't up to scratch. Look, the GKD Mini is great. It's a nice looking device, there's no denying that. It's playful with lovely curved aesthetics, a pocket-friendly design and minimal branding. The buttons are of nice quality and even work well on fast-paced fighting games. But again, that's about it. The screen is below average. The chip used alongside the small amounts of RAM caps it at older generation consoles, which wouldn't be a problem, but the high $80 price tag puts it in close competition with some of the best retro handhelds on the market as of now. We can only really recommend picking this up if you really like the way the handheld looks, which I know some of you will. I wish the GKD Mini added some more power and a slightly better screen, then it could have been a pocket-friendly contender, but they didn't, and for some reason they've priced it far too high. So there you have it, a review of the GKD Mini in a new format. It's currently 30 degrees here and I'm on a building site, so apologies if I'm sweating my baps off and you can hear background noise, but I thought I'd get a video up to you guys as soon as I can in the new office and see how it goes. But dang, it's hot in here.